Hey, everybody, and welcome back to For the Booze.
For the Booze. This is going to be the first time ever that you're going to be able to see yourself do that.
I know.
You're going to be able to see what I see every week. But welcome to not our first show, but our first podcast that we're filming.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Interesting. So
Kind of weird doing both.
Yeah, you can expect this every week, I guess.
Yeah.
Hopefully it looks good. We'll find out, or we'll keep making adjustments.
That's right.
But for those of you who have been watching us, welcome back. Like and subscribe. I'm going to say that now. That feels weird.
It does.
But
and for those of you listening, our fellow podcast listeners, hello. Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back. And to our Patreons, you very special, beautiful people.
Hello, hello.
Thank you for supporting us week in and week out.
That's right.
But we are here with another episode. And this was sent in by, I don't know their name. It was an email from somebody named Tea Noodle Monster.
Ooh,
great name, by the way.
Love that name.
Love it. This is a place that when they sent it, I didn't think we knew about, but we have seen it.
Okay.
Now,
it kind of sounded familiar when you said it, but I couldn't place any of it.
When I think of Peoria, we're doing Peoria State Hospital, but when I think of Peoria, my brain automatically goes to Washington.
Yeah.
Every time. So, but we're doing Peoria State Hospital. I almost said Peoria State, Washington, in Illinois. And this was a much more in-depth tale than I thought. And there's actually topics within this that I could have done an episode on.
Okay.
There's a very unfortunate story that does come out of this place, but it does. I'm not going to say it ends for the better. It was set up to be better, but it doesn't end for the better.
Oh.
But with that, let's get into this one. Let
right.
me tell you the story of, we'll call it the Gentle Hospital.
Okay. I don't know what that means, but
Very
I guess
strange.
we'll find out.
Now, the first white men to set foot in this area were Father Jacques Marquette and Louis Joliet in 1673, followed by Robert Cavalier, Sieur de La Salle, who came down the Illinois-Mississippi rivers by canoe in January 1680. Now, this is all taking place in Bartonville, Illinois.
Okay. A very long time ago, mind you.
The stories,
the 1600s.
The stories, this is just about the area. I like to give a little backstory if you're new to the show. I like to give a little backstory of the area because we have an ongoing theme on this show that says maybe it's not just the location that's haunted, maybe it's the grounds on which it sits on.
Yep. The history and the mystery that came before the places that we cover, like the actual buildings that stand there. I sure did. Of course I did.
LaSalle constructed Fort Creve-Coeur, I think that's how you say it, at the lower end of Peoria Lake where the river narrows in Tazewell County. Because this is now the village of Creve-Coeur, and if you're from Illinois, I'm sorry, I'm not French, which is almost directly across the river from Bartonville, it is entirely possible LaSalle may have walked and explored the site of the present-day Bartonville. Now, in the year 1723, when this area was still part of French America, Philip Francis Renault was successful in obtaining a land grant of 1 league on the Illinois River, extending back 5 leagues on the Kickapoo.
Kickapoo?
Yeah, it's a river.
I know. It's just funny.
I'm pretty sure it's a river. I know it's in a song by Tenacious D in The Pick of Destiny. If you know, you know.
Yep.
Now, Renault was interested in the development of mining. While exploring the bluffs along the Kickapoo, he found the land to be underlaid abundantly with coal. Now, some years later, in about 1765, Jean-Baptiste Mallet received a grant from the British for 1,400 acres at the mouth of the Kickapoo, which included 1 mile on the riverfront extending back 2 miles into the country.
Wow. That's quite a bit of land.
I mean, this was during a time, though, basically homesteading was happening. So if you could make it there, you could have it.
That's super cool, actually. Yeah.
I mean,
I like that idea.
This is, like the birth of, like, outlaw time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Rad. I love it. It is known that the family of Laville de Mallet farmed land in the Kickapoo Bottoms on into the 1780s. And somewhat later, other Frenchmen occupied farms there, namely Simon Roy, Antoine Roy, Hippolyte Mallet, Antoine Sicard, and Francis Montplaisir. together with Thomas Forsyth, an American.
Hippolyte? That's like that's a name? That's a first name.
Hippolyte.
Hippolyte?
Oh. Look, hey, this different times, man.
Okay. I mean,
you're not going to find any Steves and Megans there. It's just not going to happen.
That's true.
During the War of 1812, these farms were all abandoned when the village of Peoria was burned. Now, the first permanent settlers in Limestone Township, which is by the name of the county, by the way, were Joseph Moffett and his 3 sons, Alva, Aquila, and Benjamin, and they settled there in 1822. So I think these while there were people there before, I think these are the original, like what is considered to be like the original people.
Original settlers and stuff.
Yeah, because this is when it actually started to become like a thing.
Okay.
The Harker family came in 1829 and settled in the southwest corner of the township, which was called Harker's Corner, near the present location of Lake Camelot. Now, other early limestone township settlers were Henry W. Jones, James Crow, James Heaton, and Pleasant Hughes. What a pleasant name.
Pleasant is a pleasant name.
It's got to be a woman, right?
Go figure.
Other settlers who came in the middle of the century were Conrad Bonts, who came in 1844, Christian Strasser, and the Hollers in 1847. Now, George Ogeman in 1849, Ed and John Roelf in 1851, and Samuel Ball in 1852. I found all this information is coming from a really old book on Peoria that I found.
Oh, okay. Super cool.
And it goes way more in depth. Like it goes, because I just wanted to give the prehistory of the location that we're talking about. But if you've ever wanted to know the extensive history of Peoria, Illinois, and Bartonville, there's a book. I don't know why you would want to know, but it's there.
I mean, hey, it's there if you want it, you know?
See how much I have to do?
I know.
I have to read so much stuff. These people were mostly of German descent and planted the first vineyards in the township. Wine was produced from wild grapes before their vineyards reached maturity. And in the year of 1850, the other people of Peoria County voted to establish a township and form a government. So now they're being like a cohesive, part of society.
Becoming like a full town unit. Yeah.
There's government now, so it's Americanized. Now, a short time after, Orrin Hamlin and Alva and Aquila Moffett erected a dam in the vicinity of Middle Road to build a sawmill. The first timber sawn went into the new courthouse being built in Peoria. At a later date, a flour mill was erected at the same site, which over the years became known as Monroe's Mill. However, unfortunately, nothing remains of this early industry.
Oh, that's sad.
So there's no more of this going on there.
Yeah. I like it when, like, towns, like, from, back in the time, like, 1800s and stuff, and, like, the things that they make and they grow and, like, kind of establish their towns with, like, are still running to this day, or, like,
a lot of towns
even
are
just
like
a little
that.
Niche corner of it, you know?
Because even where we live is a, kind of like a livestock central point, and it's still that today.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of places do, but this one just didn't seem to. I think limestone is their main source of industry now.
Okay.
I don't know a lot about Bartonville other than what I read. And I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. I'm not very smart. I went to school in Florida. Cut me some slack.
We both did. It's okay.
Now, the area that is now Bartonville proper has been known by that name since at least 1878, when a post office was opened there and named in honor of W.C.H. Barton. Now, the Barton family came to central Illinois in 1829 and settled in northern Peoria near the Mitchell Sanatorium.
Well, it's official. They have a post office. They are now officially a town.
Yeah,
that seems to be like the point.
I mean, that's like, what we know it as now. Was it like that back then, though?
I don't know. Like a post office, and then, good Lord, if they're like railroad tracks started running by your town, like you're about to be booming. Yeah,
I don't know about booming, but...
Well, more than you were,
it's going to be more than 10 people on a farm. Well, I don't know. In 1850, they came to the part of Limestone Township that is now Bartonville. Now, they first lived in a farmhouse near the present offices of Keystone Steel and Wire Company. I have no idea what that is. In 1868, they moved to what was known as the Barton Mansion at 5416 South Adams Street. Kind of bummed out to find out it's not there anymore.
Aw.
Now, the home was occupied by the Bartons continuously until W.W. Barton's death in January 1958. The house was probably the oldest building in Bartonville and was eventually demolished in 1975 to make room for Interstate 474.
Oh, lame.
Always with the roads, man.
Lame.
I bet it was a cool house.
Yeah, I bet.
I bet it was red.
Anything back from then is like super cool.
Yeah.
I mean, little house, big house, doesn't matter. Like,
But mansions back then were just, they were built different.
oh yeah,
They're not like they are now.
100%.
I mean, now you do have all the, like the the modern amenities
right.
but there's something really magical. Yeah, I said that about these old mansions, especially the ones that still stand today because they have stood the test of time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, they're amazing. Now, the Peoria State Hospital was built to be an institution unlike anything else of its kind. Opened in 1902, the Peoria State Hospital was initiated by the work of the Peoria Women's League, who had seen the kinds of, we'll say, treatments that were being used to treat the mentally ill at the time.
And we know from our research of many, many hospitals that back then, that was not good treatment.
If you want to hear some horrid old hospital tales, go on our podcast and go back a ways and listen to like Taunton State. And there's some other ones.
Any asylums, hospitals.
We're a lot of
anything
episodes
like
and it's
that.
hard to remember, but all the hospitals back then did deplorable things to these people.
So bad.
Now, they knew there had to be a better way to house and help those people. From the very beginning, they knew they wanted Dr. George Zeller, a local surgeon, to be not only the superintendent, but the father of this institution. Now, open under the name Illinois Asylum for the Incurable Insane, they were really not PC at the time.
Yeah, no.
Dr. Zeller petitioned to have the name changed to Illinois General Hospital and then later changed to Peoria State Hospital, as he did not believe anyone to be incurable. Very progressive.
Wow.
For this time, very progressive, right? We don't hear a lot of that. It's usually like, stick 8 gallons of insulin in them and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So I was surprised when I read this.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Now, Dr. Zeller wanted to run a new kind of institution which treated people with mental illnesses humanely. And he took all the bars off the doors and windows, removed all types of restraint, and instituted new holistic types of therapy.
So again, this is nothing like anything we have ever covered before.
This is so different because it literally was like boiling people alive, freezing them to death, dosing them up with insane amounts of stuff that we know now would kill them. So
right, weekly lobotomies and all kinds of other things that they were just testing to see if it would help people. And no matter what it was medical research.
It's very refreshing to see in history that not everyone was like that.
Yeah.
Because up till this point, I really had it in my head that everyone was like that.
Oh, 100%.
So it's good.
This is nice.
Compared to what we usually read.
Yeah.
Now, Dr. Zeller was considered mad for refusing to lock his patients up or tie them to beds, but his open-door policy meant his patients were treated with human kindness and empathy. Regularly inspected by the medical boards, the Peoria State Hospital was considered number 1 in their treatments of some illnesses and their curative abilities of others. The hospital also boasted the number 1 nursing program in the country for 34 of its 36 years in operation.
Wow.
Why didn't anybody take a page out of this? Why was everybody else doing such barbaric things?
All the other things?
When this was proven to work.
Wow. That is so interesting.
That's what bothers me.
Wow.
The stuff we've read was already proven to be better this way, so why did we read so many things that were so bad?
Right. Oh, my Lord.
It's crazy.
Well, everybody should have taken a page from this book.
Yeah.
For sure.
Even after Dr. Zeller's death in 1938, the hospital continued to run following his vision of non-imprisonment, non-restraint, non-sedation, and only an 8-hour workday. Despite all of these positive attributes, the hospital would actually be forced to close its doors for good in 1973.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Now, its closure was due to a combination of lack of funding and staffing, despite the constant employees' pleas for funding and the ability to hire more employees. The state government was already on a crusade to close these lifelong type facilities.
That's awful. Like, if you looked at, like, especially the treatment of people, like, you know, like we keep saying, it's
It's bad.
This is the one that you would want to keep open, that you would want to staff, that you would want to fund.
But as we know, as being American, so any of you that listen that are outside of America, the medical program here it's very monetized. So
yes,
it would make sense that they wanted somebody who was going to be more barbaric and create more problems and create more money flow. So at this point, the hospital included an astounding 63 buildings. Unfortunately, a taboo existed about these buildings, and a majority of them were demolished. Now, only 12 of the 63 remain. There are also 4 cemeteries on these grounds containing the thousands who died while in residence at the asylum. Famous graves include former gravedigger Mr. A. Bookbinder. Keep him in mind, he's going to come back.
Okay.
Rhoda Derry, who sadly became famous because of the cruel treatment she suffered before coming to this institution, and Emily Belcher, the last surviving descendant of the legendary explorer Sir Francis Drake. Now, Rhoda Derry was born on October 10th, 1840, which ironically is my sister's birthday, in Indiana, USA. Now, she was the youngest of this. I need to set this up before I go farther.
Okay.
But I didn't know who this was going into this. And there's going to be a strong tie to how I feel at the end, according to this story.
Okay.
Now, growing up, Rhoda became enamored with the son of a wealthy family from a nearby farm, sparking disapproval from the young man's mother. In an attempt to prevent their union, the young man's mother threatened Rhoda with a satanic ritual and a curse. And subsequently, Rhoda exhibited paranoid behavior, claiming to be pursued by a malevolent force.
Oh.
Following a disturbing episode where an invisible force repeatedly pushed her against the walls at home, Rhoda's mental state deteriorated. She became aggressive, underwent a physical transformation, and was deemed possessed, leading her parents to abandon her at the Poorhouse Psychiatric Center in Adams, Illinois.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're thinking you have all of these things going on with you, of course you're going to go through changes and like become a different person.
I went back. I do a lot of research for the show, guys. And I went back and I looked at pictures of Rhoda. Okay. Rhoda was actually really pretty.
Really?
She was a good looking girl.
Okay.
By the time she passed away, she looked nothing like herself.
Oh.
Nothing.
What?
If side by side, you would never believe it's the same person.
Wow. That's crazy.
She was transferred to Bartonville Asylum in 1904, and Rhoda spent her final days crawling through the corridors due to her deformed legs. In 1906, a severe epileptic attack prompted a violent outburst, leading a doctor to decide on her tragic end. Her throat was cut and then staged as a suicide.
Stop. No.
Yeah. Now, years later, though, 2 nurses confessed to the events, but no one faced legal consequences. Visitors to Rhoda's grave report feeling a tug on their legs. The Catholic Church investigated Rhoda Derry's case, concluding that she was not mentally ill but a victim of demonic possession.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy. Oh, my Lord.
Is that not nuts?
Oh, my God. I couldn't even imagine.
She, by all accounts...
Couldn't even imagine.
She, by all accounts, was a very normal girl before this. Like, there was nothing wrong with her.
Wow.
And then
That's tragic.
Almost
it really is.
Immediately after, the mother of the son said she was going to put a satanic curse on her.
Right.
Her whole life fell apart.
Oh.
And she lost all touch with reality.
Mm.
I'm telling you.
That is awful.
When we get off of here, I'll have to show you pictures of her because she went from a very pretty girl to, I mean, I don't want to talk bad about the way she looked in the end, but she really deteriorated in like the most extreme way I can think of.
But I mean, you think too, like she's in a hospital and she's like having all of her family and her friends and everybody just be like, you're crazy, you're crazy, you're crazy. And then ripped from her home.
But nobody told her she was crazy.
Like put into this place.
Everything that happened to her was her claim. Nobody did it to. Nobody told her anything. They found her acting a certain way and then put her in here. Mm. So her stay at the other hospital I didn't touch on. It was bad.
Oh, God.
Like locked up in a little cage. It was bad. It was really, really bad.
So again, should have kept this one open.
Yeah. I mean, they killed her, though. They killed her before the hospital closed. Ugh. So how many other people did that happen to?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
The Bowen Building, one of the most known structures on the grounds, was unfortunately demolished in 2017. The Pollock Hospital, just a block away from the Bowen, is open and available for historical tours and paranormal investigations. But the Peoria State Hospital Museum, a block further up Pfeiffer Road from where the Bowen once stood, has many artifacts from the asylum's history, including the last remaining Utica crib belonging to the asylum.
Have you ever heard of a Utica crib?
I know what it is, yeah.
Oh, my God.
I do the research. Of course I know what it is.
If anyone doesn't know what a Utica crib is,
it's basically
look
like...
it up. It's crazy.
It's basically like an adult-sized crib with a top on it. It looks like a cage.
Yeah, and you can only lay down.
Yeah.
Like you can't sit up. You can't do anything.
It was common practice for the time for, what they were doing.
Yeah, but, dude, come on. It's so wrong.
It's pretty bad.
Oh, it's so bad.
But, I mean, for all accounts, the treatments that went on here were much better than other places. But things still happened here because it is during a time where things were they were different. And I'm not saying that to be like to pass on what they did or anything.
Right.
I'm not saying it's better because it was a different time, but it was just a different time. There will be things there that we will never understand because we are not a product of that time.
Absolutely.
That maybe they felt like back then was okay, but it wasn't okay. It's definitely not okay. And I'm glad that we treat people much better now.
And but I also think if it weren't for times like that and it weren't for the practices that they did then, there wouldn't be so many restrictions and things that we have now, and I feel like if those restrictions were never put in place and they didn't do the rough things that they used to do, people could kind of still get away with some things.
I think a lot of what it is too is like, we've learned.
Yeah.
We've learned from our past.
Yeah.
But insulin was once used to, it was used to, I don't know if it was used to treat diabetes back then, but it was a form of treatment for insane people. And they would jack you up on it, thinking
why?
Thinking like I don't know what the thought process was behind it, but we've learned that it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. No, it does not.
So while all of this is very barbaric, I think it had to happen.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I'm glad it happened or anything,
right.
but I think it had to happen, so that way we would know not to do this now.
Yeah,
and that brings us into where we are today. And now it's time to get into the spooky portion.
Yay, my favorite.
So how do you feel about a lot of this stuff? Because there's a lot of claims here too.
I don't know. I think I need some more information first,
well,
for sure.
You're going to get it. This topic did not disappoint in the area of, stuff to find.
Ooh, because a lot of the times I know you kind of scramble around to find things.
And I thought that this was what this was going to be, but it was not.
Okay. Heck yeah.
Now, if spirits are actually the personalities of those who once lived and refused to cross over to the other side at the moment of death, then wouldn't these spirits reflect the turmoil of their former life? And if hauntings are the residual effects of trauma being imprinted on the atmosphere of a location, then wouldn't places where terror and insanity were commonplace be especially prone to these hauntings? And this is something we've talked about.
It is.
It's that trauma.
Yep.
It's that stuff happening that it's got to leave something.
Yeah, that high, intense energy that happens with especially trauma and terror and things like that. Like that's a big emotion.
You know what a good point about this is, like, we've never really talked about, is when you go into a room after somebody's been fighting, you can feel that.
Oh yeah.
You can feel that, right?
Yep.
So why is it that we wouldn't think that in a location where a girl got her throat slit or something, you wouldn't feel something from that, which tells me that it leaves behind a certain energy.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. Like, you walk into a room and people have been arguing, like, Like,
think about being a kid, right? Your parents just got done arguing. You could cut the tension in that room with a knife, and you don't need somebody to tell you they've been fighting. No. You know.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Not much. Yeah.
Sorry, that's just you putting it that way. Just
It makes sense.
It does.
It makes
absolutely.
sense. I'm pretty proud of myself. Here, pat me on the back.
Good job.
Now, not much remains of Central Illinois' Peoria State Hospital, especially after the Bowen building was controversially demolished in 2017. People did not want this to happen.
Oh.
When after we get done, I'm going to show you pictures, and you're going to remember this place. And the picture that people who do know what this is, that gets in their head, is this building.
Okay.
This is the building people think of when they think of this location.
Oh, okay.
So people didn't want this to go away.
Right.
Which is crazy to me because we used to talk about Waverly.
Yep.
Right? You have a vision in your head.
I can see
building,
it, 100%.
This building is like their Waverly.
Okay. Wow.
Author Troy Taylor popularized this location via several books, including Haunted Illinois and Haunted Decatur Revisited, although it had long been an object of local curiosity. Since then, an attempt was made to rehabilitate the Boeing building and opened it for tours, and it appeared on Sci-Fi Channel's Ghost Hunters in 2013, and Destination America's Ghost Asylum in 2016, and not to mention a whole slew of YouTube videos over the years.
So we've definitely seen this place.
We have 100% seen this place.
Okay.
And I didn't put it in here, and I couldn't find it, but I'm almost positive Destination Fear went here.
Okay.
Now, this publicity was unfortunately not enough to save the building from the wrecking ball. And according to Taylor, Peoria State Hospital, originally known as Bartonville State Hospital, actually began its life in 1885 as an empty shell and faux medieval castle. But no patients were ever housed or treated in the building, and it was torn down in 1897.
Wow. Whoa, super cool.
Now, the institution, of course, was rebuilt and reopened in 1902 with a new name and a new superintendent. Now, the main story associated with the asylum revolves around the unusual circumstances surrounding the death of one of the patients, Mr. A. Bookbinder.
There he is.
Now, Dr. Zeller assigned Bookbinder to the hospital's burial corps, and he performed his job admirably. He was very loved. Mr. A. Bookbinder was a completely mute, so no one actually knew his real name. Apparently, the man suffered a breakdown while working in a printing house, possibly in Chicago, but nobody's sure. And his mental illness had left him incapable of coherent speech.
Wow.
Now, the officer who had taken him into custody merely wrote on his report that the man had been employed as a bookbinder.
Mr. A. Bookbinder. Okay.
A court clerk listed this as the man's name, and he was sent to the hospital as a bookbinder.
Wow. What? That is weird.
Old Book, as he was sometimes called, mourned the passing of each and every person that he helped buried in the cemetery. When Bookbinder died, Dr. Zeller wrote that 400 staff and patients observed his ghost mourning at his own funeral, just as he had done for countless others while he was alive.
Oh.
He was a very loved man.
That's really sad.
It's very sad. And he took his job seriously, and he did a really good job. And when I read that when nobody else showed up to any of these people's funerals or services, he was always there, and he always cried.
Oh, man.
Now, they even opened the coffin to confirm that Old Book was really dead. His corpse was securely inside. However, the strange story doesn't end there. The elm tree on which Bookbinder had leaned and cried began to wither and die.
Oh, I just got goosebumps. Oh, my God.
There was a tree on the property by the cemetery, and he would always lean against the tree after he buried somebody, and he would weep against the tree. And the tree died when he died.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, work crews would attempt to remove it several times, but each time they were scared off by haunting moans that seemed to come from within the tree itself. Years later, the elm finally succumbed to nature when it fell over during a storm.
Wow.
His tears finally swept it away.
That's really, 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 really sad.
I know.
That's crazy, series of events that happen.
It's very sad.
Whether they are linked spiritually or
clearly
paranormally.
there's clearly a link there.
Or not. But they're that's something. That is something.
Again, this falls under the category of like haunted objects, though, because we become so attached to certain things, and sometimes they're not the things that we think they're going to be. And in this case, a man with, not even his wits, he had the tree.
Mm-hmm.
The tree obviously comforted him, and it became a part of his soul, basically.
Mm.
Now, Old Book is believed to still roam the grounds and buildings of the hospital. Witnesses have reported allegedly seeing a shadowy figure and hearing unexplained footsteps attributed to Old Book. Now, there is also the story of the girl in blue, another well-known legend that involves the ghost of a young girl dressed in a blue dress. It is said that this girl may have been a former patient at the hospital, and her spirit is said to have haunted the now demolished Bowen building, previously one of the main structures on the hospital grounds.
Wow.
So with stories like this, this is why people didn't want it to go.
Right.
People wanted to investigate,
Absolutely.
And where's the harm if you're not going to tear it down and put something else up? Why couldn't we leave the stuff up?
Yeah. Like, what is it hurting being there?
Now,
and especially with so many people that were saying, like, they didn't want it to go. They wanted it to stay.
I don't know if this is smart or not, but we live in Utah.
Yeah. And
we have a town near us, and it's an old mining town. And while it is considered a ghost town, people still live there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we've seen the state of these buildings, and you can go up to and probably into these buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand why. I get that they wanted to restore it, but where was the harm in letting it just
be
hang out until they could restore it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's all money.
Instead of, having it be a controversial demolition, they could have just, maybe taken a poll, taken a vote, something, because obviously there was a lot of people that still wanted to keep this building.
It comes down to money. Now, there are also tons of claims of shadow people. Many visitors and paranormal enthusiasts have reported encountering shadowy apparitions, often described as shadow people, in various areas of the hospital. These shadow figures are believed by some to be the restless spirits of former patients. Now, on the website, spectralseekers.com, where some of this information comes from, a reader commented on this article saying this. Now, this is a good connection here.
Okay.
Quote, "Hey, this is kind of weird, but over the years, the more I think about it, the more I can't get past what I saw. When I was younger, I grew up in Bartonville, Illinois, the town that once housed the old state hospital, also known as the Peoria State Hospital. And obviously, growing up, it created much intrigue in us children. Around the time I was 15 or 16, me and one of my friends decided to walk over to the cemetery because we'd never experienced much in the actual Bowen building, short of some weird but questionable events in the tunnels under the grounds. Now, on this night, we walked down the road. It was dark, but we could see all the way down it thanks to the streetlights. We were walking past the building known as the tuberculosis ward when suddenly we looked up, and maybe 25 or 30 feet in front of us was this black humanoid-like figure that stood like a man, like a normal man's height, but it was all pitch black. It didn't even look like it wore clothing, but you couldn't make out any of the physical features. It was as if it was cloaked in darkness or couldn't be perceived by us, like it took the shape of a human, but everything inside that shape was pure blackness. It just stood there, and we waved to it, thinking, somehow despite my previous words, that it was a person. And it didn't wave back. It didn't move a muscle. Then I took a step toward it, and as soon as I did, it took a step toward me. And much like some horror movies, when its foot hit the ground, I felt the most vile energy emanating toward me." Unquote.
Ugh. No thanks.
So this wasn't this was just somebody's comment.
Right.
This was just somebody who happened to read the article that I found online, and this is what they had to say. So they have
a claim from there. They lived there. They were a teenager just kind of going and hanging out.
But it's a synchronicity. It goes with the story that they experience what countless amounts of other people have. And this is always important to us because it's one thing to be like, to read an article online that says this place is haunted, but then nobody ever talks about it. Nobody's ever claimed anything.
Right.
But this is not like that. People claim to have been here and have seen things and have experienced things that are said to be experienced here. So I find that super interesting.
Yeah. That's pretty good story,
Pretty good,
too.
yeah.
Like, no, thank you.
Other claims at the hospital are mysterious noises. Visitors to the Peoria State Hospital have reported hearing strange and unexplained noises, such as footsteps, voices, and laughter echoing through the empty buildings. These sounds are often attributed to the spirits of former patients and staff. Now, room 502, which was in the Bowen building, was often singled out as a particularly haunted location within the hospital. Legends suggest that tragic events occurred in that room, and it is believed to be a hotspot for paranormal activity. Well, it was, because unfortunately now it's not there.
Not there anymore. But, wow.
Now, there have been other reports of paranormal experiences at Bartonville, but none of them are very specific. In their field guide to Illinois hauntings, Jim Grashik, and I'm not sure, and Donna Boonstra generically claim, quote, numerous other events have been known to happen throughout the various buildings.
Yeah, I
So
bet.
things happen. The Peoria State Hospital for the Incurable Insane, along with many other similar institutions, all closed during the 1970s. It was quickly taken over by curiosity seekers and vandals alike. In April 2012, the Bartonville Village Board agreed to loan the Bowen building owner Richard Weiss $340,000 from the village TIF account to rehabilitate the building. Now, Weiss planned to pay back the loan by holding paranormal-themed events and tours at the building. However, the plan ran into some trouble when asbestos abatement proved to be too costly, so they couldn't get rid of it.
Yeah.
Quote, so much time and passion has brought the building to a way better physical state than it has been in for years. But earning a few dollars per tour isn't going to realistically raise enough substantial money required to bring that building to code for operation, unquote, said Janet Marie. It's Marie, right? You're a girl.
It is Marie.
Janet Marie, creator of the documentary For the Incurable Insane.
Wow. That's sad. That's really, really sad because they wanted to do things with the building. They wanted to turn it into
I still
other
don't
things.
understand why they had to restore the building.
I don't know.
There are so many haunted locations that you can go to that are in disrepair.
Right. They're just trashed. Like
So I don't-
falling apart, wearing hard hats and masks.
That's my
walk through.
biggest issue with this is like I get that they wanted to,
Right.
redo the building, but I don't understand why they had to be done.
I don't know.
Because I don't believe anything was built in its place. They just knocked it down.
That's
It's sad because it's
it is
history.
so sad. Yeah.
According to WMBD News, Bartonville Board of Trustees approved a $400,000 loan in January 2016 to cover the cost of demolishing the Boeing building. The village hoped to recoup its investment with the sale of the building's limestone blocks.
Oh. Okay.
It was demolished and sold for scrap.
I just don't understand. Like $400,000. That's a lot of money to put towards a demolition, but you can't put it towards restoring the building.
I'm going to bet that they did not get their money back. Now, there's a quote from this. Tearing the Boeing down and selling it for scrap would be like selling off people's memories, brick by brick, said Sylvia Schultz, author of a book about Peoria State Hospital called Fractured Spirits. And she's right.
Yeah, absolutely. She's right.
She is right because this is history, and you don't get this back after it's gone.
You don't. And, like I've already said, like so many people were said to not want this building torn down.
No, I just don't get it.
You tear it down just for a little bit of money. Like I guarantee you they didn't make a lot off of everything that they sold.
They're trying, they were trying to recoup that $340,000 loan, but now they're $740,000 in debt. So I guarantee they did not make their money back on this. But as we like to do on this show, what do some visitors say about the location? Because, you can't just trust the word of the internet.
Right.
As we all know, I mean, the internet is right all the time. But
of course.
we need a little more. So we always like to go back and look through, like TripAdvisor and stuff like that, where people have been here or have had some kind of experience with the property that we're talking about.
Yeah, real life, true experiences from people.
Now, a lady named Shonda C. in 2015 on TripAdvisor says, quote, "I'm a professional psychic medium, and my husband and I are doing a film at the Peoria Asylum called Ghost Realm Peoria Asylum. I've always enjoyed going to locations with a lot of history. I've been to several iconic locations in the paranormal field, but this asylum is at the top of my list. Save the Bowen Inc. have done a priceless deed. Some of these came before the Bowen was knocked down.
Okay.
So some of these will talk about the Bowen building as if it's still around.
There, yeah.
Save the Bowen Inc. have done a priceless deed and saved the building from being demolished in 2008. This review was written in 2015, 2 years before it was taken down.
Yeah.
They have cleaned up the building and opened it to the public for historic and paranormal tours. You can also stay in the building all night alone or with your team to investigate. The staff is very nice and courteous. The history of this location is just amazing, and there is so much history here. Both positive and negative things happened here. There is a good mixture of energy. There are many spirits here. The spiritual activity is extremely high here. One of the highest out of all the locations that I've ever been to.
Wow.
All paranormal teams seem to get wonderful evidence here, and I recommend this location to a wide variety of people. If you like paranormal, if you like historical, or if you just want to see a gorgeous building with an amazing staff, this location is worth checking out."
Oh, super cool. I want to have visited it.
Yeah, I know what's coming up in the story. I don't believe it's this next one. It might be one after, or... Okay, yeah, it's not this one.
Okay.
There's going to be a story on here that is going to stand out, and it's going to be the last thing I read, and you'll see why it stands out.
Oh.
But before that, we have another one from Montana Travel Mom, and this one was in 2013, also came off of TripAdvisor. She said, quote, "I wanted to do something really different from usual tourist attraction when visiting Peoria and saw the asylum tour mentioned in a brochure. Now, we booked a several-hour building tour plus the cemetery tour. Now, I'm 95% a skeptic when it comes to anything ghost-related. I feel that. While I don't believe everything that the asylum owners and tour guides do when it comes to the ghosts, now, I believe they believe it, if that makes sense. That is, they're not making things up to sway or scare tourists. Plus, I did have one very odd and inexplicable thing happen to me on that tour that was quite spooky," unquote.
Oh.
Now,
elaborate, please.
For this last one, I was very surprised when I saw this. This has to be a local tale.
Okay.
I was not able to find anything else about it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I just wasn't able to find it. Mm-hmm. And it's going to completely contradict a lot of the things that we heard about the great Dr. Zeller.
Oh.
And this is from a local.
Okay.
This was not found on TripAdvisor. I had to dig really deep for this one.
Okay.
Okay?
I'm
so
excited.
Just keep that in mind.
Let's do it.
Now, one more review and a very interesting nameless comment on the website IllinoisHauntedHouses.com. It says, quote, "It is said that there was abuse at the old hospital from Dr. Zeller while it was running. Several people had testified that Dr. Zeller would run railroad nails through people's feet as a form of cure. There is said to be a lady wandering the grounds in a white night dress, and she was one of the victims of Dr. Zeller. I remember driving past the asylum as a passenger when I looked up at one of the windows and saw a woman who looked to be in her mid-20s with brown hair that reached her shoulders, looking out the window overlooking the cemetery. I've been there several times, just driving by but never stopping. Something has always tried to pull me in towards the cemetery across the way."
Oh, my God. Railroad nails? Stop.
I mean, if you think about it, though, that's really on par for a lot of the stuff that we've talked about over the years of doing the show when it comes to asylums and sanatoriums and stuff.
I mean, I know, but like in the beginning, it was painted as this whole separate.
I want you to think about
that
this.
Kind
All right,
of thing.
Pause. I want you to think about this.
Okay.
I grew up in Taunton, Massachusetts, where Taunton State Hospital once stood.
Yes.
Taunton State Hospital wasn't built to be the horrific, place that it turned out to be. It wasn't made for that.
I mean, I know.
And a lot of people didn't know about a lot of the really bad stuff until after.
That's true.
Same here, right?
That's true.
Dr. Zeller was believed to be a great man, but later, maybe he wasn't.
Now I don't like it as much.
I wonder if being around people 24/7 like that will affect you.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure it does. However, you are a doctor.
Yeah.
You are nurses.
But it's in the 30s, and the thought process is so different.
I get that. I do. But there has to be this like little thing in the back of your head that says, maybe not.
Yeah, but the sliding scale for morality was way different back then.
And everybody else was doing it and doing those types of things. And
well, that's what I'm saying.
I get it.
But okay, so like let me put it like this.
Okay.
We as modern day people would never think to grab a spike and hammer it into somebody's eye socket, right?
Absolutely not.
But during their time, that was normal. People brought people in for that. They didn't go in there and get that on a whim. Like, they intentionally did that.
Yeah.
But we know now that that's not good. We know that's not good.
No, not at all.
So it's a different time.
Yeah.
And with that being said,
I
am going to have to ask you a question.
Okay.
And the question is it real? When it comes to Peoria State Hospital, what do you think? And now, if you're new to us because of YouTube, our word is not law. We just like to ask each other at the end of every episode how we feel about it, whether we think it's real, whether we think there's some merit behind the haunting. And even with saying that, bear in mind, we ourselves have never been there. So we are always open to being wrong. So if you disagree with us, that's fine. If you want to tell us that we're wrong, comment below and let us know why we're wrong. And if I agree with it, I'll read it. I'll read it on the show. So
okay.
Why do you? I'm like, why do you not think it's real? What do you think?
I haven't answered yet.
I know. What do you think about Peoria State?
Well, I think along the lines of us doing a lot of asylum type places and a lot of hospital type places and things like that. And the fact we brought up earlier that we talk about all the time with energy staying behind and things. I do think this place is haunted. There is no way that people were there. What we thought in the beginning was at a good hospital, but now we're finding out that maybe it wasn't. But
again, it's not that it wasn't. It was for the time.
I get it. However,
cut these people some slack. They didn't know better.
Absolutely not. But yes, I do. I think that energy stays behind. I think the sadness, the turmoil, the terror, the fear, and maybe even some of the happiness of the people, being at the hospital and living there and doing, or even like the nurses and stuff, doing things to these people. It's just the residual feelings that get left behind from people. I can absolutely see this place being haunted. So
is that a yes?
It is. I said yes.
Okay. I know you went on for so long. I wasn't sure.
So what about you, babe?
I think it's possible.
Okay.
I think,
how possible?
That I don't know. I feel like before the Bowen building was torn down, I think it was more possible. And I'm also a firm believer that, I know I said earlier I'm very skeptical, and I am very skeptical. But that also means that I'm also a believer. I'm just skeptical of what people say. I'm also under the thought that just because the building goes doesn't mean whatever was there goes with it, unless it's attached to a brick in the wall.
Yeah.
So I'll say yeah. I'll just say yes. I think there could be something going on there.
Okay.
I want to believe so badly that Mr. Bookbinder still mourns the loss of everybody.
I know. That was literally the story that stuck out of my head when you asked me.
He's a fantastic soul.
Yeah.
And sometimes the worst scenarios happen to just the best people.
That's right.
So this is for you, Mr. Bookbinder.
You, dude.
I'm going to say yes because, people really are convinced, and outside of just internet articles, people that have been there feel very strongly that they have had an experience there. So until I go there and have nothing, but I also try to keep it fair.
Yeah.
If I go somewhere once and have no experience, I mean, they're not animals. They're not here to perform on command for us. So
that's right.
They're people. But that's it.
Yay! That was a good one.
It was a fun one.
I like that one.
It was, and thank you, T-Noodle.
T-Noodle. T-Noodle Monster? Is that what it was?
I sounded very like I am from the South when
T-Noodle Monster.
T-Noodle. Thanks, T-Noodle Monster. That was a good one. But no, it was great. Thank you so much. And if you out there listening have a suggestion, you can always email us at fortheboost12@gmail.com. But I guess this is where we're going to wrap it up.
I think so.
Where can they find us?
They can find us on Instagram at forthebooze_podcast and on Facebook at forthebooze.
You can also find us on Twitter at forthebooze, and I'm YouTube. I say it because I'm used to saying it. I'm on it, but now I'm used to saying it. If you're listening podcast form only, we are on YouTube.
Yes, YouTube
if you Google us For the Booze Podcast,
we're everywhere.
Pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
Also, if you have a listener story that you would like to send in, and we'll read it on the show, or you have a suggestion for a location that you want us to do, well, as I said earlier, fortheboost12@gmail.com.
And those are our favorite.
Don't forget to like and subscribe the video, comment, whatever. If you would like the videos to get better, I need a new laptop, so I need you guys to like and subscribe and all that. And I would say, arguably, the most important thing you can do to help us out is 5 stars rate and review on iTunes, or subscribe by now, I guess. I got to get used to I got to figure out how to ping pong off of this.
I know.
And shout out to our lovely, lovely Patreons. Honestly, you're helping us keep this thing going. And if you would like, if you would like to help support the show, you too can also join our Patreon, where we actually do another podcast for our Patreons.
Behind the Booze.
And the one I'm about to put on there later today is probably the best one that we've done so far.
I know, it's really
great.
Good.
And you get, early access to the regular podcast and everything else. So
that's right.
I'm out of breath from trying to say everything I can think of. I don't know what else to say.
All the stuff and things.
So why don't you take us out?
Well, thank you, everybody, so much for listening. And we will see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.